Hard. Hey, what's up? I'm Jonathan. In Luke 15, Jesus tells this parable of this great banquet. And for us, it's meant to be a picture of who is invited into the kingdom, who the kingdom is for now that the Messiah has come. And he's sharing this with Pharisees who had a different view of the kingdom. But it's also a picture then of who belongs in the church, who the church is for. And Jesus tells his disciples, the master of the story, to go and tell the people invited to come, but they all make excuses. Then he says, well, get the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, bring them. And the servants say, well, what you've asked for has been done. So all those are here, the crippled, the poor, the blind, and now there's still room. And then he compels his servants. He says, go and compel the people in the streets and the byways to come in. Those that are forgettable by culture, that don't have access into the city, have them come to this banquet, this feast of goodness. And it's always been a picture. In Isaiah, we have this picture of the Messiah coming and inviting all people, all ethne, to this great feast of good wine, rich food, and rest for them. And here we see kind of 5 characteristics that are making up who belongs in the church. First, it's people who are in need. Jesus is telling the Pharisees, don't invite people that can repay you, but instead those that can't repay you, and that's where your reward will be. So it's for people who don't have the resource to be at the banquet themselves. We don't have the ability to be righteous by our own works or abilities, and instead we need Christ's righteousness to give us entry into the banquet. And then it's for people that will bring their mess of life. There's excuses here. People say, well, I've got all this stuff going on in life. I don't want to go and be part of this banquet. And we do that all the time. There's all kinds of things that fill up our schedule or other things. But even from a shame perspective, we don't want people to know what's going on in our life or how we're trying to rely on Christ for certain things. And we are invited into community to share all those things, that we would bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. But then it's also a place for those that are unseen, because the master of the banquet says to his servant, go and compel in, bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. Now, sometimes we just spiritualize these things. Well, I'm crippled spiritually, or I'm lame spiritually. And that's fine, that works. But Jesus is not talking about metaphorical people here. He's talking about real people with real disabilities, that the foundational group of the church, the picture of the kingdom here, is those with disabilities. And so the church should be a place welcome to those that the society says we should not see, we should not focus on. So that could be homeless, that could be single mothers, youth, it could be those with disabilities, but that is who the church is for. And then finally, Jesus says that this banquet is essentially for those who want to be with the master. Because everyone in the story, if they want to have more than just a feast, but a relationship with the master of the banquet, they will come. And that is what makes a compelling community, us as believers in the church, showing others our love and longing for Christ that will compel them to come in. So I'm Jonathan. Stay anchored in the word and trust Jesus.